Good morning and thank you for tuning in today. You are watching The Dietitian on a Mission. I want to welcome you to the show. My name is Janet Calderwood. I'm a registered dietitian, and we have a special guest today. One of my favorite dietitians, Cassandra, is with me, and we're going to talk about something that we've talked about ourselves quite a bit, is the nutrition trends for the upcoming year. And of course, we're into the year now for a few months here, but I think that you bringing up some very valid points are worth sharing with the viewers to make them aware of what we can expect and what are some of the pitfalls of nutrition, and make them more aware of health information. So thank you for being here with us today, Cassandra.
Thank you for having me.
Good. And I understand that we are live on Facebook right now, and I want to welcome the people that are tuning in from Facebook. So now we're calling this show Trends in Nutrition for 2017. And I'm just going to ask you, what do you think are some of the trends that we're seeing right now, as we're even talking about what we can expect for this upcoming year?
The biggest trends right now that people are talking about is not really a new one. The biggest one is weight loss. I guess that's not really a trend. It's kind of more of a topic of discussion that's kind of never probably going to go away.
Never.
But there's specific ones just for this year. One of them is something that we call eating locally, and then another one is called clean eating. Another one is called
Wait a
paleo.
minute. Clean eating, that's when you're actually washing your your food with soap and water, and then eating it.
Or
right?
eating in the bathtub.
Oh,
That's another
good
good one.
Okay, clean eating. Okay, continue.
Yeah, so these are just a few of the trends that I've learned from researching years past, looking forward to this year. But the biggest question always is what is the right way to eat? What should I be eating? And this is a very common topic of discussion, and sometimes it's even a confrontation, because so many people have what their opinion of what they think the best way to eat is. So the answer to that question is very subjective, but that's what dietitians are here for, to help clear up all that confusion.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, depending, like you said, who's giving the information and how they're getting the information can be part of the problem. So I appreciate you being here today. This show is certainly dedicated to helping consumers like you watching separate nutrition fact from fiction, so that you can feel confident in any choices that you are making, that they are good for you. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit, I think, for starters, at what you've seen from what are some of the research showing us, what are some of the trends that we see with Americans and how they're currently eating.
Yeah, so first let's take a look at what's been going on in the past from this year and prior. And the fact of the matter is, every year the average American is eating 22 pounds of cheese and 77 pounds of sugar, and that's not even including artificial sweeteners.
Okay, now the 22 pounds of cheese, is that for every American, or does that include people from Wisconsin as well? Because, you know, those people love cheese.
Those people are probably raising it,
Yeah.
the average, but yeah, that's for the average American.
Okay, so the average American, 22 pounds of cheese, that's a lot of cheese.
That is a lot of cheese, but even more is the sugar, and that was an analysis from the USDA, the research based
How
from
much sugar?
77 pounds, not including artificial sweeteners.
A year?
The average person. So if we
77
think about
pounds.
how much sugar we're putting in our coffee each day, that may not seem like that much, but something that already has sugar in it, or added sugars like juice and soda and desserts and pastries and things like that, it really does add up. And at the end of the year, if you take an
77
average.
pounds. Wow. Okay, that's significant.
And even more significant is the salt intake that Americans are consuming. So every day people in this country consume about 3,400 milligrams of salt per day, when the recommended amount is only 2,300 milligrams, and that comes from the American Heart Association.
So we can do a better job with that as well.
We can do a better job with that, and I believe that just eating out one less time a week than you're currently eating, that can reduce 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams right there.
You know, it is pretty interesting that when people eat out, that, you know, without having that label right there in front of you, you really don't know. And so many of those meals are just laden with sodium, including almost as much as a daily amount for your entire day from one eating out meal.
Exactly.
So I agree with you. I think that that's a great suggestion, is just eating out less often can greatly reduce your sodium intake.
And it can save money as well. But I've seen it. I've looked up the nutrients from different restaurants, and restaurants that we would think that would be a healthier choice, like Panera or Applebee's or Tropical Smoothie Cafe. There's still a lot of entrees on there that have a lot of sodium. They may be lower in fat or lower in carbs even, but the sodium is still very high.
And I do believe for wherever you're eating your meal, you know, whether it's out and about or certainly in home, is being aware of where that food's coming from. If you are someone that's dining out, you can review the restaurant menu ahead of time
In advance.
and take a look, because, you know, certainly we don't want to stop people from going to places, because some of those places you mentioned do have some healthier options available, but you should be aware of what you're getting when you're getting it, and reviewing the menu ahead of time will help you make some decisions about what you're going to eat before you get there.
Yep, nothing wrong with being prepared. So finally, the final point I wanted to mention about what's been happening in the past is that sugar has been proven to have the same addictive properties as cocaine, the drug.
Now, where did that come from?
So this has come from different research articles. So it
Okay.
hasn't come from a certain website. It's come from different research review articles.
Cocaine, huh? As addictive as cocaine.
Yeah, so studies have shown that sugar and junk foods flood the reward system in the brain with dopamine, stimulating the same areas in the brain as drugs like cocaine.
Oh, goodness.
So there is something to say that sugar has addictive properties.
Okay.
So sometimes when we go on a diet and we say, all right, I'm not going to eat sugar anymore, it's one of those situations that we
Because
want to...
it's not typically on the diet food plan, right? They don't just say one piece of apple pie or one Snickers bar chocolate candy. And so, you know, those are things that are typically eliminated completely. So tell me what happens.
when we eliminate those desserts completely is...
And then you go on a diet.
and then you go on a diet, well, then people crave it. So if you kind of go quit cold
Crazy,
turkey, like
yeah,
you say,
cold turkey.
just like someone would quit cigarettes cold turkey, it's very difficult. So that's why we as dietitians want to make small goals, you know, working towards a bigger goal of no added sugar or...
So it's not completely eliminating some of these food items, but you just do need to be careful still, because again, you know, whatever we're putting in our mouth, I mean, it's adding calories to our day. If we eat too much of anything, it's going to end up on our waist, right?
And it is important to note that we're talking about added sugar. So not sugar that's found in a banana or an apple or an orange.
Okay.
Those are natural sugars. So it's more specifically added sugar, something that doesn't naturally contain sugar.
So, okay, good point. All
Okay,
right, good.
so with all of these things, 77 pounds of sugar and all these pounds of cheese, the result is that heart disease is very prevalent, and it's the #1 cause of death in this country. So,
And that's not just because of the cheese and the sugar. She's using those as examples, but certainly we're seeing that, you know, with added weight gain and so forth, we're seeing this prevalence of chronic conditions such as heart disease. Okay.
the chronic conditions, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, kidney disease, and stroke, all can be influenced by our diet and our lifestyle. And those can also influence the cause of death in this country. So it's all very relative, and there's a very clear connection between what we're eating, what we've been eating in the past.
And what we're
And-
dying from.
Basically, yes.
So that tells me that if you want to change outcomes in your health, change what you put in your mouth. Right?
Right, but one of the problems is that people are very confused by nutrition, and it could be because you know, commercials that we're seeing and posts on Instagram or posts on Facebook, things that, we don't know if there's truth to it, but, a lot of people see it and they think, oh, that must be true. So nutrition is very confusing. But what's not confusing is there are recommendations and guidelines put out by accredited sources like the American Heart Association, the U.S. Dietary.
The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is the leading nutrition expert of healthcare professionals in the entire country, if not the world. So, but yes, so making sure that people have access to that very legitimate information is a stepping stone, I think, to getting people back on track.
Yes, and when you read information on these websites, also ChooseMyPlate.gov is a free website.
ChooseMyPlate.gov. Okay.
We don't have to question whether this information is true or not. This has been proven and researched, and now it's published, so that's sources that we can trust.
So that's a good source. Okay.
So it's very important where we're getting our source of information from.
What about people that are watching this show?
Getting their information from us?
Yes.
I'd say we're very credited sources here.
Registered dietitians. I think so too, and I always try to bring to you people that have the credentials and the education that is accurate and scientific evidence-based, because nutrition is a science. I always tell people it's not just a hodgepodge of snake oil treatments and anecdotal therapies. It's actually a science. And so we look at research, we look at what studies are being conducted, how the studies are designed, and what are the outcomes and the results that we get, and then help guide consumers to having accurate information.
Yes,
okay.
So important. Okay, so let's talk about what have been the most searched diets for 2016 on Google.
Okay.
So the beginning of every year, Google puts out what has been the most searched in different topics. So of course I looked at the diets, and this isn't in a particular order, but it was the top searched diets. One of them was called a taco cleanse.
Taco cleanse.
Yeah, people were searching taco cleanse. But more specifically, it's a plan that includes nothing but vegan tacos for 30 days. So it really wasn't, I mean, from the title, it sounds like it's, maybe just unhealthy fried crunchy tacos, but that really wasn't what it was. It was just vegan tacos for 30 days. Another diet
That's it? Vegan tacos for breakfast, vegan
30
tacos
days.
for lunch. What do you have for dinner time? Vegan tacos.
I guess
are
that
typical.
takes the guesswork out of meal planning.
Exactly.
But on day 31, what are
do
they
you
going to do? Cereal.
You switch to some
Cereal and
other
PB&J.
tacos? Okay.
Another diet that was searched most frequently in 2016, it's called the Military Diet Substitutes. And it's a 3-day diet, only 3 days, that allows you to eat as much as you want of only 18 foods, which include broccoli, tuna, hard-boiled eggs, but also vanilla ice cream and hot dogs. So I'm not sure what was going on there.
The military diet.
Right. So I'm not sure with the long-term effects of that. It's only 3 days, though.
Hot dogs and ice cream.
Yeah, not sure who made that one up. It might have just been whatever someone in the military had access to.
Maybe that's all the food they had in their pantry and refrigerator. Okay, let's make the 18 food diet.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then we have the mono diet, which is just...
Mono diet. That sounds like a disease, mononucleosis.
Right. But also, it's eating just one food at a time. So, for example, if you're going to eat potatoes, you eat nothing but potatoes for 2 weeks. If you're going to eat...
does the mono diet tell you what is the mono food of the day?
No,
or
you make it
every
up.
you make it up as
So
you
if
go.
you want Oreos for 2 weeks...
Love it.
Right.
So that's...
Yeah. So,
Oh my
I mean...
goodness.
You really have to question the legitimacy just because it's very common, and clearly this was common on Google.
Obviously, these are the number one searches.
I don't even know how you would come up with that to search, but you really have to ask, what is the legitimacy of these diets and these eating plans? Has the safety been researched? Are there risks? What are the long-term effects? Is this for weight loss or is this for health?
But here's the thing. When people are going on one of these things and they're desperate and they're actually looking to step up, they don't really care about the legitimacy. They're just like, listen, I need a diet. I'm going to a wedding on Saturday and I want to take off 25 pounds.
Right.
Okay, well, then they're doing all this search.
Uh-huh.
Well,
How do
my
I
thing
lose
is,
50 pounds in 7 days?
what do I tell people? Well, I could cut your leg off and you could lose 10% of your total body weight. But so, you know, I would say, and the other thing I tell people, don't be foolish. The quicker you lose weight, guess what? The quicker you regain weight. The quicker you lose it, the quicker you regain it.
Right, if something's too good to be true, it probably is.
The mono diet, I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, just, I better just be quiet now. I'm getting a little excited here because, I mean, I can't even believe, like you said, how ridiculous these things are. But desperate people take desperate measures, and you know, and it's unfortunately because dieting is a vicious cycle, and it actually sets people up for failure. The diets fail people. It's not people failing themselves, but the diets cause the failure. They are the failure.
It's not the, yeah, it's the diets themselves, not the people.
Okay, so I want to be clear for that. Okay, all right, go on.
So these are all questions we need to ask ourselves if we are going to start a new eating plan. Is it safe? Does a dietitian recommend it? Is it for fast weight loss or overall health improvement? Is it going to help my cholesterol and help my blood pressure, or am I just going to lose weight?
Well, and that's the thing I think we need to really think, like you said, is this going to do, am I really looking to make some permanent changes? Because if I'm looking to make some permanent changes, I want to take time to do it correctly. Because there's always unhealthy risk associated with some of these very unbalanced things, the mono diet or even the military diet and these things that you described. I mean, when you're eliminating large food groups from the diet that are overall very important to include for their rich vitamin, mineral, nutrient composition, then you're not doing what's in the best interest of your body, and it's likely that you could be doing a great deal of harm and set you back even further. So be very careful.
You're exactly right. So let's talk about diets that do have legitimacy, that are buzzing.
Good.
So there is a report that comes out every year. It's called the U.S. News and World Report. They come out with the best of everything, is what they call it.
Okay.
So there's the best colleges, best places to live, best cars to drive, and of course, diets have been added to that. This is the 7th year. So 38 different diets were ranked by a panel of nutrition experts, so dietitians, cardiologists, et cetera, et cetera. So the very best overall diet was actually the DASH diet, which has been voted the best diet since 2011.
Okay, DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension, voted #1 diet since 2012?
11.
11, okay.
And more information is just on dashdiet.org.
Dashdiet.org. Now, is there a dash in between dash and diet when you put in the web address to get there? Or is it just dashdiet.org?
There is no dash.
There's
after
no
dash.
dash between dash and diet.
Right.
Okay, so
All right.
dashdiet.org. That's the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. #1 diet for what? For permanent weight loss?
This is the best diet overall. So this was ranked on short and long-term weight loss, ease of compliance, safety, and overall nutrition. So this diet is actually not considered a diet. It's considered an eating plan, which is a
Eating
lifestyle.
plan. Okay.
So it was originally created to lower blood pressure, which is the point of stop hypertension. But studies have shown that the risk of many diseases, including some cancers, stroke, heart disease, heart failure, kidney stones, and diabetes all decreased when people were on this diet.
Now, let's just pause here a second. So if you're wondering, well, what is this magnificent way of eating plan that I need to know about so I can, so that's #1 on the list. If you can go to that website, but also it's basically, it's a diet laden with fruits and vegetables, whole grains, low-fat dairies, lean meats, and a lot of those healthy fats. You know, the ones like nuts and avocados and olive oil, and focusing on those types of foods. And so that's kind of the eating plan that has proven to be very efficacious in minimizing risk factors for chronic disease conditions. And I'm glad to see, because we recommend that quite a bit. And there's nothing really spectacular about it. It's just overall.
It's just a heart-healthy diet, really, and also limiting red meat, I believe, is on there, and
Limiting red meat.
limiting the added sugar that we mentioned earlier.
Okay, so that's a good way to go. Okay.
So this diet also, the DASH diet, was voted the best diet for diabetics, which is also interesting because it wasn't originally created for a diabetic diet. So it's not necessarily low in carbohydrates, which I think a lot of people assume a diabetic diet is. It's lower in the simple carbohydrates, and then a regular amount of complex carbohydrates.
Okay, so when she's talking about carbohydrates, you know, carbohydrates are basically the foods that convert endogenously in your body to form a type of sugar known as glucose, right? And so people that have diabetes, that's a concern of theirs. When you look at carbohydrates, there's some smaller molecules, the chains, and there are some longer ones. So the complex carbohydrates is a longer glucose chain than the simple carbohydrates, and essentially it takes a lot longer for them to be absorbed and digested. So that's why it's not just about choosing the carbohydrate, but carbohydrates that are going to certainly be a little bit easier for the body to absorb and control the blood sugar.
Correct. And some examples of what we consider simple sugars are things like honey, candy, soda, pastries, white bread, white rice. So there's always kind of a better option than those choices.
And what would be some examples of complex carbohydrates?
Legumes would be one example.
So chickpeas and black beans.
And peanuts as well. Whole grain bread and cereal and oatmeal.
Oatmeal, and then like whole grain pastas. Okay, all right.
Exactly.
So that's your options here.
Brown rice as well.
Okay.
Perfect. So these are all questions we want to look at when looking into a diet. Is there a plan to keep the weight off over long term? Is there a dietitian available for guidance? Does the program provide ongoing monitoring and support for accountability? And another one mentioned in this list was Weight Watchers, actually, which is great for accountability and ongoing monitoring.
And, you know, the thing is to remember, whatever you choose to do, if you're thinking to yourself, I can tell you this, if you're thinking, well, once I lose this weight, I'm going to go have myself a banana split or whatever, I can tell you, if you're thinking in your mind, well, when I go off of this, and you're going to go back to what you were doing before, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to get the same result you had before. That means the weight's going to come back on. So, you know, there's usually, and then people, when they go off a diet, they have like a post-diet binge to celebrate.
Or even before they start the diet, there's a binge the night before.
The pre-diet binge. I mean,
Last
I'm
Supper.
starting a diet. The Last Supper, I'm starting tomorrow. So, right, that's very important. So, I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. We just want to think about everyday choices, and when you have the opportunities to make a healthier choice, do so. Okay?
Perfect. So one trend moving forward for this year that I thought was really interesting is something called robots in the kitchen. Now, I know this past Christmas, kind of a thing was the vacuum robot. I don't know if you heard about it.
Oh, the thing on the floor?
Right. I love vacuuming, especially making
You love vacuuming?
I love making the designs where it looks like a flower. So if my vacuum robot does not make the flower, it's not going to work. So anyways, there's robots in the kitchen which won't make a flower on your carpet, but they will make a fully prepared dinner waiting for you when you get home. I know this is very weird. However, the manufacturer is called Moly, and they've created the world's first robotic kitchen. I can't imagine how much it costs. It wasn't listed online, so that's usually not a good sign.
Yeah.
But this is a fully functional robot designed into a professional kitchen, and actually there will be an iTunes-style library with a growing collection of recipes from around the world, and you can access it remotely from anywhere. So if you're here and you say, when I get home, I would really like some Chinese food. You just put it in, and I guess it's there waiting for you.
Or you say, hey, I want something from the DASH diet.
Exactly.
And see if the robot can do it. All right, well, that might be a little far-fetched. I mean, and you know, it sounds good, but you could just do that yourself, actually. Right?
Probably save a lot of money.
Save a lot of money and maybe some fires, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So when we think about these trends, you know, I always think of, you know, trends, okay, but we want you to remember that nutrition trends, some of them come and go, but overall nutrition and health is important, and it's something to look at every day, every year, every time you go to the doctor, you're getting your different levels checked, and it's important to know that doesn't have to be trendy. There are different things that people do to sell different things, but this is your body, and you can't trade it in, so you want to take care of it. Okay, we have just a couple minutes left. Tell us about the new label coming out.
Yes.
The nutrition fact label.
Perfect. So by July of 2018, actually, food manufacturers will have to make the switch to the brand new label. So by July 2018, every food product has to have a new label.
Okay.
And these are packaged foods, so you're not necessarily going to see it on a banana or an apple. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a bigger, bolder type that is easier to read. The calories are going to be a little bit larger, the type, than they currently are. And what I think is most important is that foods that are packaged where they're commonly eaten in more than one sitting or just a single sitting, it will require 2 different columns of nutrition info. For example, if you have a beverage and the serving size is 2,
In the whole container.
in the whole container,
Okay.
there's going to be 1 for 1 serving, and then there's going to be a second one for the entire bottle.
Oh,
which
I
is
like
really
that.
important because, you know, many people don't realize that you do have to double the calories, double the sugar.
And most people drink the entire bottle.
Right. So it's for those products that are typically consumed in one sitting that have more than 1 serving.
Okay, so that's something that we can expect to see soon. I know that, you know, the labels are there for the consumer. And sadly, I think that, you know, people don't really pay that much attention to them, but having that bolder print and everything will hopefully catch the eye of many people, and maybe it's going to be a wake-up call. You know, and I want to thank you for sharing these suggestions. You know, nutrition is certainly a hot topic, and while our waistlines in America are growing wider and wider, people are more preoccupied with food than ever before. So thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Jen.
I always want to thank you for tuning in. I hope the information was useful for you, and I look forward to seeing you the next time right here on CTN Town.